Another area where we've led the way is on the issue of education. And yes, they talked about record expansion of parental choice, where you can take scholarships and go to the school of your choice. We have record amounts of attendance in charter schools. We did the biggest increase in pay for teachers that we've ever done in the history of Florida. And we've done a Parents' Bill of Rights. Because parents have a fundamental role in the education and upbringing of their kids. Schools, school districts, charters, private, all this stuff is very important. But those are just institutions to help families and the community. They are not designed to supersede the rights of families and the rights of children. And so in Florida, we're doing it right. We're making sure that parents have a seat at the table, and that means the school systems need to be designed to promote education, not indoctrination of our kids. We've prohibited critical race theory in our K through 12 schools. We are not teaching kids to hate this country or to hate each other. We're going to make sure that we promote American civics and teach kids about our Constitution and the Bill of Rights and what it means to be an American. And my wife and I have 5, 4, and 2-year-olds at home, and we are sensitive about the challenges of raising kids in an environment in which Lord knows what's on the other side of them pressing a button on some computer screen, or getting my kids know how to get the Apple remote and download all this stuff. I don't even know how to do all that. And they're 4 and 5 and they figure it out. So what we've said is, as parents of young kids, you should be able to send your kids to school. You should be able to have them watch cartoons, just be kids, without having some agenda shoved down their throat. We want to make sure that in Florida, parents know you send your kid to elementary school, they are not going to be taught that they were born in the wrong body. They are not going to be taught that their gender is a choice. And not everybody appreciated that when we did that bill. I had the left going crazy. I had the media going crazy. And of course, corporate media, promotes false narratives is pretty much all they do anymore. So they were doing that. But even with all that, I think the left understood, running on this issue is probably not good politics because parents don't want it. And, it's like I think about my parents, and we have a lot of seniors in Florida. I don't even know that they appreciate what the heck even this stuff means to do this. So it's just not a good way to run for office. And they understand that. And they understand they would lose at the ballot box. They said, maybe if we pressure some of the woke companies to get involved, maybe that corporate pressure will be enough to defeat the Parents' Rights and Education bill. And so they went for the 800-pound gorilla in the state of Florida. A company that's got a decent-sized foothold in Central Florida that you may have heard of, called Disney. And I think that they thought that if they could marshal Disney to come out against it and pressure me, that somehow that this bill would end up going up in smoke. Well, I had news for them. We run this state. We do not subcontract out governance to woke companies in California. And we are going to do what's right by our people. We're not caving to corporate pressure. So we signed the bill and, of course, stood strong on that. But we also understood that this was a company that not only opposed it, was pledging future action to see that parents' rights were repealed in Florida. And I thought that was a big mistake. I think while they may have the right to do that, they don't have the right to force you to subsidize that activism. And the fact of the matter is Disney, since the 60s, has gotten massive subsidies from Florida. They have their own government that they run in Central Florida. They're exempt from laws that all their competitors have to follow, and they get major, major tax breaks. And so what we said is we're not comfortable with that position in Florida. It does not reflect our values. And while you're free to do that, we are not going to put you on a pedestal in this state while you are doing that. So we worked with the legislature and took action. And because we did, Disney is no longer going to have its own government. They're going to live under the same laws as everybody else. They're going to pay their fair share of taxes in the state of Florida. But And look, it was important because, kids are different, okay? When you start advocating for things that are not good for kids, if we're not willing to stand up for that, we might as well just fold up the tent. So we were never going to back down on that. But it does raise this issue of the left using corporations to try to advance leftist policies that they're incapable of doing and winning at the ballot box. And you look at things like ESG, which is being done with a lot of these major asset managers and major companies. They're trying to impose an agenda on you without any accountability from you. They're going around the political system and doing it through corporate power. So we're fighting back on that in Florida. We've eliminated ESG. We've said you can't do ESG in the state pension fund. And we're going to do statute with the legislature next year to go even more. But at the end of the day, I don't want the state of Florida governed by the values that we see with like the World Economic Forum elites in Davos. I want it to reflect towns like I grew up in, like Dunedin and other places like that in Florida. And so we're going to make sure that that's how it works here. Those policies coming out of Davos, those are dead on arrival in the state of Florida. So we need your help over these last little more than a week now. I know you all say you're going to vote, and I believe you, but what I need you to do is make sure everybody else you know is going out to vote. You need your friends, your family, your neighbors, coworkers, employees, anybody in your orbit, and all you got to say is, hey, you need to go out and support the governor. And I think a lot of people understand because there weren't very many governors standing up for people's rights over the last 2 years. You have a lot of people in every community in Florida that may not have had a job if I had not stood up for them. So I think they understand, and I think that they want to do it. And so that would be my request. I want to see a record turnout in Collier County. I think we can do it. And just so you know, where the difference between 18 and now with Collier, well, it's really statewide. People will ask me, one of the concerns they have is they see the migration and they'll see New York license plates or New Jersey. And I'll tell you, when I was a kid growing up, I never saw a California license plate in Florida. You started to see after the COVID California license plates in the state of Florida. And I'll tell you, a lot of my supporters were really spooked when they saw that because they're like, wait a minute, are they bringing like Berkeley values to Florida? That would not be good. And so people are concerned about, okay, you're leaving these areas and you're coming to our state. We do it much different. Are you embracing that? Or are you going to try to change that to match the failures of where you came from? So people always ask me, I get that all the time. Well, here's what's happened. When I got elected governor 4 years ago, there were close to 300,000 more registered Democrats in the state of Florida than Republicans. And before I became governor, we've never in the history of Florida had more registered Republicans than Democrats. Well, now, this election, November 8th, will be the first election that is ever conducted in the state of Florida where there are more registered Republicans than Democrats. But it gets even better because we're not just winning by a few votes. We have now 306,000 more registered Republicans than Democrats. Collier County. We had the margin difference between registered R's and registered D's was large, but since 2018, we've increased that margin by 30% right here in Collier County. So we have no excuses except for getting the biggest election victory that we've ever had in Collier County, and I'm depending on you to get that done. And we've got to work hard over the next few days and a little over a week because freedom, as Reagan said, is one generation away from extinction.